Hi, and welcome to True Crime, a channel dedicated to the dark underworld of criminal activity carried out by gangsters, mobsters, cartel leaders, and others. While many of us may have preconceived notions of what life in prison might be like, the truth is often far more bleak and daunting than we could ever imagine. As we delve into the inner workings of the Japanese prison system, we'll explore the inhumane living conditions, the strict and often brutal discipline, and the shocking lack of basic human rights that prisoners endure daily. Let's get started. Imagine being a prisoner in Japan. There are over 70,000 inmates in 74 government-run prisons, but not all of them are what you might expect. Some have no walls or armed guards, just bamboo fences. Can you imagine? Others are more similar to what we see in the United States. Despite their differences, one thing is consistent across Japanese prisons: they have few problems with things like homosexual rape, escapes, weapons, or drugs. And it's no wonder why. Riots are prevented because there is a large number of guards. For example, at Fuchu Prison in western Tokyo, a high-security facility for serious offenders, there are 500 guards for just 2,300 inmates. Among those 2,300 inmates are around 500 non-Japanese prisoners from 39 different countries. Surprisingly, these prisoners often receive better treatment than their Japanese counterparts. They get private cells with televisions and have access to foreign newspapers and books. Certain groups even get special food, privileges. But even with these privileges, overcrowding has become a problem in recent years due to a higher crime rate and longer sentences. Cells designed for 6 people now hold 7 or more, and storage and conference rooms have been converted into cells. New prisons and facilities have been built, but they have not been able to keep up with the increasing number of prisoners. At Fuchu Prison, inmates rise early and work for 8 hours a day with short breaks in between. They bathe 3 times a week in the summer and twice a week in the winter, and are allowed to watch television for 2 hours every night. Compared to American prisons, Japanese prisons are notably cleaner and less violent. Older prisoners had the luxury of a small, single cell with a futon, television, toilet, sink, and a large suitcase for personal belongings. However, not everything is perfect. According to a survey of ex-inmates, they disliked their vertically striped grayish pajamas, felt their cells were too small, and wanted better meals. One surprising fact is that 47% of all Japanese prisoners live in solitary confinement. This high number is due to prisoners being punished for assault and other disciplinary problems. It begs the question, is isolation an effective form of punishment, or just a way to avoid addressing deeper issues within the prison system? It's no secret that prisons can be tough, but the conditions at Japanese prisons are particularly cruel and degrading. Human rights groups have exposed a litany of horrors, including strict rules that prevent prisoners from making eye contact or talking outside designated times. Inmates are forced to adopt certain postures and walk in a certain way, and minor infractions are punished with severe sanctions. In one particularly disturbing case, a prisoner was forced to kneel or sit in the same position in a single cell for up to 2 months with no exercise, mental stimulation, or contact with other prisoners. Others were stripped, cuffed, and beaten with a leather belt for seemingly minor offenses, such as looking up while eating. Prisoners are made to work and eat in silence, and crying is even considered a form of punishment. Some are even painfully strapped into leather body belts and metal handcuffs and thrown into protection cells for speaking rudely to a guard. Although the use of leather body belts has declined, the use of protection cells continues. The stories of American prisoners who have been incarcerated in Japan are particularly harrowing. Kevin Mara, who was imprisoned for smuggling marijuana, described being stripped, cuffed, and beaten for looking up while eating. He was also forced to eat from a bowl on the ground while handcuffed. Another American, who was arrested for drugs, said he spent 6 days in a small cell staring at a blank white wall as punishment for sending a letter to his family. The conditions in Japanese prisons are worse than most of us could imagine. While punishment is an important part of the justice system, it mustn't become inhumane. In Japan, prisoners are not only incarcerated, but also put to work in small factories. They are forced to manufacture a variety of goods such as department store shopping bags, plastic clothespins, and even children's plastic ski poles for a meager wage of around 50 cents per day. Some of the products are made for famous brands, including Burberry and two leading Japanese department stores, Mitsukoshi and Daimaru. The prisons even have their brand, Kapik, for shoes, belts, and bags. Despite the prisoners being skilled laborers, their work conditions are grim. Inmates work in silence, without talking or even making eye contact. Each inmate keeps his head down, Tim Large wrote in the Daily Yomiuri. The only solace for these prisoners is that they are allowed to sell their products in retail outlets. Customers can purchase a variety of goods including penguin dolls, Gokumaru shoulder bags, blue stick soap, and even soy sauce and miso produced at Ikehara Prison for traffic offenders in Chiba Prefecture. However, due to Japan's hard economic times and the inefficiency of the prison work system, outside contractors have canceled or scaled down prison-based projects. Although prisoners may learn valuable skills, they often receive little to no compensation and are forced to work in silence and under harsh conditions. This raises important questions about the ethics of prison labor and the fair treatment of incarcerated individuals. Japan's aging population has had a significant impact on its prison system. As the general population continues to age, so too does the prison population. The majority of Japan's inmates are now elderly, leading to new jails being built with accommodations such as wheelchair ramps and grab bar toilets. These prisoners are provided with low-sodium meals and small portions of rice cake to prevent choking, and some facilities even have a special ward for elderly inmates where they can receive more personalized care. However, even with these adjustments, caring for elderly prisoners is thought to be a significant burden. After being released, many of these prisoners struggle to reintegrate into society and are more likely to end up back in prison for nonviolent crimes. The reason for this is often because they cannot find work or housing and have been disowned by their families. As a result, some elderly prisoners prefer to stay in jail where they have their basic needs met and do not have to worry about the challenges of life on the outside. Despite the difficulties of aging in prison, some elderly inmates find solace in their fellow inmates. Life in prison can be much better than expected because they are surrounded by old folks who are pretty quiet. Although this may not be an ideal solution, it highlights the need for better support systems for elderly individuals in Japan, both inside and outside of prison walls. Elderly prisoners require specialized care, which can be a challenge for prisons to provide. In Fuchu Prison, for example, a group of elderly inmates sit together making small paper bags at low tables. Although it's not an ideal solution, it's a last resort as elderly inmates can't keep up with the group activities and need more care. As the number of elderly prisoners continues to rise, the burden on prison officers increases too. Some prisons have started hiring physical therapists to keep the inmates active and healthy. Hiroshima Prison has a physical therapist on staff to take 6 inmates for walks and exercise each week, and Kobe Prison hires an occupational therapist to teach exercise techniques to their inmates. However, experts suggest that rehabilitating elderly inmates in welfare facilities instead of prisons may be a better approach. Compared to other developed nations, Japan has the highest proportion of elderly inmates. Even Italy, another aging society, takes a different approach to rehabilitation. Their courts consider the necessary treatment to help elderly offenders reintegrate into society, often allowing them to rebuild their lives at home or in welfare facilities. In contrast, elderly inmates in Japan are often cut off from society, leading to repeat minor offenses and difficulty living independently. The challenge of caring for the growing population of elderly inmates in Japan's prisons is not just a moral issue, but a practical one too. As more inmates need specialized care, there may not be enough space to provide it. The care factory may be a temporary solution, but a long-term plan is needed to ensure the well-being and rehabilitation of elderly prisoners. Japan needs to rethink its approach to elderly inmates and find ways to better support them, both in and out of prison. Thank you for watching another amazing video from our true crime team. Like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned to our next real-life true crime video. Life True Crime.